Well, hello, Ollie. Hi, Ollie Matthews and Societal Narcissism. It's a pleasure to meet you. I am the other son, and I am your host of the You Deserve Better podcast. And I gotta say, it was a really uplifting surprise yesterday to just take a look at my channel. I put a short video up, and suddenly I see, wow, what's all these views? Wow, what's all these comments? Who's Ollie? Ollie sent me. Ollie sent me, and new subscribers and such. And it was appreciated. You know, I appreciate your efforts to widen your spotlight a little bit for the new guys like myself, as you mentioned, the small guys. And we are a new outfit. Been doing this podcast about 6 months now, so still kind of finding our voice, messing with different formats. You know, finding the right way to go. But it's therapeutic for me, you know, to get my story out there, and that's one of the things I love about this community, the estranged community, is just the support, the tight knitness. I feel closer to my support group than I ever felt to my family, and I feel that same thing in the comments from your viewers coming over and saying, hey, we appreciate what you're doing and all that. That's why I do this. I tell my story so that other people out there can hear their story and my story and feel less alone, like it worked for me when I met other estranged adult kids. So I appreciate also your commentary on my video. I went through and I watched, of course, you taking my little video apart and talking about different parts of it. And so I have, as I went through, I noticed you also had some questions. There were some parts of my story that weren't really, I couldn't tell everything in the one video. So I have some commentary on your commentary to fill in some of those blanks. First of all, I want to start off with New York, represent. I was actually born in Manhattan, and my family moved to the Midwest when I was like 5 years old. So New York, New Jersey, right on. You asked a bit about my father, and as I mentioned, we moved here when I was like 5 years old, and my parents divorced when I was like 7 years old. And my mother, brother, and I moved into a small apartment, and the abuse was awful at that time. But my father could best be described as absentee. He was a corporate attorney and traveled a lot for work, and he just wasn't interested in doing He just wasn't interested in doing the work of parenting, putting in the hours. He missed a lot of his custody weekends because he was frequently traveling. And as for how his ex-wife was raising me, he didn't really care, just so long as he didn't have to do it. He was much more interested in embodying what he felt was the playboy lifestyle. He, as I said, travels a lot, so he had girlfriends in various cities and enjoyed some of the finer things in life because he made good money. So yeah, he wasn't around a lot, and in that sense, I guess he was an enabler. He passed away a long time ago. He died 25 years ago in April of '98 from skin cancer. We were never close. But I will say this, as absentee as he was, at least he wasn't abusive like my mother. He was not mean or cruel, wasn't mean-spirited, tearing at me all the time. And he liked to have fun. He liked to enjoy himself. He liked to play games. And so when he did show up for his custody weekends at his place were like Disneyland compared to the misery at Mom's house. We played board games at night. He taught me to play chess. We'd go to movies. We'd be at the pool at his condo. He liked to be playful and do fun things. When he was cooking, there'd be music playing in the house. I didn't realize till just recently how dysfunctional my upbringing was. Never was there music in my household growing up. Never did my mother care to hear music. Never was there a game night or anything like that. Never any life or joy. But my father, he had some life. He liked to enjoy and have a good time. And so at least there was that for him. And but he wasn't around much. And when my mother wanted to send me off to boarding school, he wasn't going to argue with that. So that's the story with Dad. Now, as for my brother, my golden child brother, I may not have been explicitly clear about this in my video, but my brother went to private school, not boarding school like me. So I was sent off to boarding school in Connecticut. My golden child brother was kept at home in private school. So, I mean, he had a regular high school life. And so when you say about, well, mother was trying to get rid of us so she could have a social life, my mother had no interest in social life. She has no friends. She doesn't go out and do fun things like that. As I mentioned, no game nights or music in the house or anything, just misery, frankly. And so when she sent me away, it wasn't about getting a social life back. It was more about taking my golden child brother and bringing him in closer. She could sink her claws in and draw him close. My brother and my mother are very close. They're extremely close today. And for a long time, I was jealous of that. I wanted to be on the inside of that closeness that they had. But now I look at that and I realize that's a cult. My mother and brother are a cult unto themselves. Emotional enmeshment, the way my mother has intertwined herself with my brother. And, a narcissist mother abuses both the children, just in different ways. And my brother, doesn't, I'm sure, see. My brother is very, very successful in his professional field. He's very wealthy and powerful, and I'm sure considered very intelligent by many people. But nobody knows my mother and brother like I do. And I know that behind all that, what people see on the outside, I know that my brother is emotionally, he's still a child, emotionally. Sometimes you see it in like the childish jokes he makes or things he thinks are funny, but he's emotionally a child. My mother's kept him that way so she can keep him under control. Narcissist doesn't, understand, love really, and they only care about outward appearances. And my brother is perfect feeding for my narcissist mother. He makes her look like, mother of the century with all his success and everything. And they're perfectly happy to not have me around. And on top of that, mother can also play the victim and say, "Oh, my other child, my other ungrateful, lousy child who doesn't speak to me," and so forth. So that's the full story with my golden child brother. And then last thing I want to touch on, and this may be something that we disagree on a little bit. This may be where our two paths diverge in a wood. I still don't even know how I'm going to put this into words. Is the question of how much, I think slack is the word you used, and it's not a wrong word, I don't think, slack, that I give to my mother. And I feel like I'm pretty hardcore, and it's surprising to find someone who's even more hardcore than myself in terms of that. Here's my quandary. My mother was definitely raised in an abusive childhood. My mother for sure has childhood trauma. I remember the SOB father of hers, and he was a real monster. I was afraid to be around him the handful of times I met him in my life. I can't imagine living under that. So I'm certain that she has her trauma. Now, something that you'd mentioned was, I think you maybe said more than once, is you talked about that she had a choice. She had a choice to act differently. And I have to agree and disagree. And when you say, no one had a gun to her head, no one forced her to do these things, that's true. But did she really know to do better? 5 years ago, I was in utter and complete denial. I had no idea why I hated myself. I had no idea about the inner conflict. I had no idea that I was spending my whole life trying to fill a role, play a role so that I'd earn that mother's love finally. I had no idea about any of this. And then in January 2019, my wife died very suddenly in front of me. And I'd never experienced something on that level before. I thought I'd been through some tough things, and it shattered me. It broke through all my outer shells. It broke me down to the floor. And for about 2 years, I was down on that dark floor. And I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. I was talking about my mother. And she said the words that changed my life. She said, "I think your mother might be a narcissist." And so I Google searched it. And that was my epiphany moment. That was, holy crap, this is the first time it all makes sense. This is validation. I'm not the crazy one. That was my moment when it all came flushing forward and things were just all making sense. And since that day, it's continued with other insights and revelations. But that wasn't the first time that someone suggested that to me. I can recall twice previously in my past that there were other people, girlfriends actually at the time, in both cases, who said something to me like along the lines of, your mother doesn't really love you, or your mother isn't nice to you. They tried to make me aware of it, but I was so deep into denial. I brushed it off. I said, I brushed it off and I defended my mother. "Oh, you just don't know her. That's just how she is. We're great, So it wasn't a matter of hearing the message. I had to hear the message at the right time. And that was what shook me awake. That was my red pill in the matrix, like, oh my God, when I suddenly saw it all, and you can't unsee it once you see it. And it was because of that I'm here now. And if my wife hadn't died, I have no reason to believe that I wouldn't still be playing that role today. I would still be entirely blind to the reality of the situation. Am I acting of free will? Was I choosing to make myself miserable in this? Or did I just not know I was doing it? This is the difficulty I have, is that I feel like, apply that kind of same thinking to my mother, that she is in the place I was 5 years ago. And that it would take some sort of tremendous shock for her to realize the real mechanics at work in this family, the real dysfunction going on, the reality of her own trauma and what she inflicted on me. So when we talk about that she made these choices, and by the way, I want to say, I am not one of these people who believes like, oh, you got to forgive, oh, you have to forgive, to find peace, forgive. I don't buy that 1 second. That to me is this hierarchy of emotions, that some emotions or feelings are more valid or more enlightened or better than others. I believe my anger, my resentment at what she took from me is entirely healthy and valid. And I don't feel any need to say words like, oh, I forgive, in order to feel better about that. So this isn't about me feeling some need to forgive my mother. I don't feel that I can put 100%, like she knew everything. She had total clarity of vision, just like I have today, and was saying, you know what? I want to make this kid's life miserable. I could choose otherwise, and I know fully that I realize I'm making this choice, and I'm choosing to make this kid's life awful and turn him against himself. So when we talk about a choice, geez, I don't know that I can, and that doesn't mean that I'm giving her forgiveness. Oh no, I'm angry as hell. And I realize that being the cycle breaker is work. It's not easy. It sucks. Being the cycle breaker sucks. It's lonely. You're isolated from the family. You're questioning yourself. We're cycle breakers. And that is never the easier path to be the cycle breaker. It does take work. And it's unpleasant. But I don't know that I entirely chose to be the cycle breaker. It fell on me after my wife's death, and then the revelation. Oh my God. I can't be anything different than I am. I am so dramatically different from who I used to be. Now I'm not playing that role anymore. But so as far as how much slack I give my mother, I guess maybe I give her a little more than you do. I feel like she didn't start from zero and say, well, I'm going to choose to do this lousy thing. She had a debt. She came with a debt that was put upon her by her abusive father. And I can't remove that 100% from the equation. It has to figure in somewhere. So I'm going to wrap on that. But it was fantastic to meet you, and I would love to discuss these issues further. It's always great to make new friends, and you take care.